You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, we're going to get started with the Board of Finance for August 28th, 2023. First on the agenda is to approve minutes of the July 31st, 2023 meeting.
I read through the minutes, and I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Charlie.
Second.
Seconded by Jeff. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second is citizens' communication. At this point in time, we'd entertain folks from the audience who would like to comment on tonight's agenda. Now's the time to do it. With no takers, we'll move on to item number 3, which is to consider and, if appropriate, approve the following transfer for information technology for 2023 from communications $6,104 into regular wages and salaries $6,104, and Debbie, welcome.
Thank you. I thought you were going to handle that transfer for me.
Oh. You're the expert.
Yeah, not really. So, yeah, first item is to cover, I have some money from the previous fiscal year left over in communications, and I'd like to use that $6,104 to be moved to cover vacation time payout for an employee that retired last summer.
Okay, thank you. Questions on this transfer?
I'll move it, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff.
Second.
Second by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 4 is to consider and, if appropriate, approve following transfer for information technology for fiscal 2024 from contingency $28,000 into technology acquisitions $23,000 and purchase services $5,000. Jim, can you give us an update on contingency?
Yes, for the contingency balance for 23-24 is $1,799,951. That includes Deb's $28,000 and the $250,000 request from the fire department for fiscal 24.
Okay, so that balance, that's for fiscal 23, right?
Now, this is for 24.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the $1,799,951. For 22-23, with all the items on the agenda, the balance in contingency is $308,401.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Deb?
So the movement of funds, the $23,000 from contingency to tech acquisitions, was because Microsoft has increased the price of the Office 365 licensing that we need for this fiscal year. So since I had to go ahead and start that project, I took $23,000 out of my technology acquisition fund. It was for items that I hadn't purchased just yet, to cover that, because I needed to buy the licenses. So this will be to put the funds back, so I have enough funds for the rest of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And for the $5,000 for purchase services, that's so we have a little overage as we bring on some new employees or we change some additions in the O365 licensing.
Okay, questions on this? Charlie?
So we're kind of a captive then to Microsoft?
Yeah,
No,
we
yeah.
are definitely captive.
So
Yeah.
we have no choice.
We have no choice. This was for a portion of the license that we definitely need. It gives us control of what's called conditional access. That's where we could lock down by groups that we have now. So let's say somebody, for instance, in Public Works can't access what's in finance. So they changed the structure of the licensing, and we have no one has choice. And in fact, on the pricing, it's government pricing. And no matter what vendor we go to, it's the same pricing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can't negotiate.
We can, and we need this because we need multi-factor authentication to have cybersecurity insurance. So we have to have it, we have no choice. Yep.
I'll move it, Joe.
Motion's been moved. Seconded by Pam. Discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Item number 5 is to consider and if appropriate approve the following transfer for elections for fiscal '23 from registrar $13,045 moving into part-time clerical $2,018, deputy registrars $7102, other purchases $296, other supplies $546, technology $3,000, and travel $523 for a total of $13,045. Welcome, folks.
Thank you. Tonight, I'll wear the hat of Deputy Registrar, representing Howie Lawler, since he cannot be here. And this request is obviously an intra-department, for year 2023 to balance the, our 101 account.
Sure. Okay, any specific questions from the registrars on this? Somebody want to move it?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
That looks good.
okay, item number 6 is to consider if appropriate approve following transfer to Recreation Department for fiscal 2023 from regular wages and salaries $13,500 into overtime $5,000, uniforms $500, utilities $6,000, membership and conferences $2,000, total of $13,500. Welcome, Alex.
Welcome, thank you. The narrative explains the reason for the transfers. It's all within our general fund budget, within our own department. So transfer of 13.5 to fill those other 4 line items, and I explained it in my narrative, the reason why, if there's any questions.
Alex, I have a question. On the Stony Creek Western trailer, where's that located? I was down there this weekend, I didn't see it out.
It's right next to Madeira, well, it's in Madeira Park.
It's in the park?
Next to the Stony Creek Beach,
Yeah,
by the ramp, actually,
okay,
by the ramp right there.
thank you.
Okay, other questions? Somebody want to move this?
I'll move
It's moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Next is item number 7, to consider if appropriate approve following transfer for Willoughby Wallace for fiscal '23 from library staff $250 into longevity $250. Jim, you gonna handle that one?
Yeah, I mean, that's, basically longevity is a contractual arrangement, and the account was a little bit short this year, so Alice sent a letter, and I mentioned to her I would just cover it at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
I'll move it.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Pam. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next, number 8 is to consider if appropriate approve following transfer for solid waste management and recycling for 2023 from regular wages and salaries $64,750 into material handling $62,400, refuse and recycling $2,000, and overtime $350. Welcome, Tyler.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So for the material handling, which is obviously the largest portion of this, 25,000 of that would be fluctuation of materials. So you can see for processing and transportation, you can see a fluctuation in those. So that went over what was originally budgeted for last year. And then the other portion, which is around $37,000, is open invoices. We had around $37,000 worth of invoices actually brought to us from the processing facility that is trying to be disputed. We're also disputing it on our side. So we wanted to make sure we had this money, at least in the account, if for some reason it wound up we did have to pay it. We don't think we will have to pay all of that, but we wanted to have that as the safety net. For refuse and recycling collection, this increase of the Thimble Islands collection is the main reason for that transfer. And then overtime was just extra overtime that wound up being worked by the guys at the transfer station.
So the 37,000 is a disputed claim based on what?
For recycling processing, so we received a portion of invoices that Murphy Road Recycling, which is run by All American Waste, is claiming are unpaid. We as the town think a portion of those were paid, and we sent them proof of them being paid. And we also have a portion that we deem should be credits to the town. But to cover that, in case for some reason it wound up we had to pay that, we wanted to pull this money into this budget from last year's.
Okay. Charlie?
I'm not sure I'm clear on that, but we're gonna hold the 37,000 until when?
Until we're currently disputing it right now. We sent them the material for it to be disputed. However, we need to have cooperation from Murphy Road Recycling to process that as well.
Jamie, you have any comment on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, so Tyler's correct in saying that these are, just to clarify a little bit more on the credits and fluctuation, we received over not only this fiscal year, but in previous fiscal years, we've dealt with this as well, where we were being charged, and remember, the board may recall during the presentation when we're changing from our to a single stream recycling, with the volatility in the markets have led to different classifications of our recycling, and with that, there's different fees. So they were, if something, is a recyclable item, but it falls into the wrong recycling stream, they were hitting us with contamination charges. It's very subjective way they determine if it's contaminated. We've disputed those, we photograph, we call in, we have records of when we're sending out loads. So it's going through multiple invoices and loads to kind of determine, they need to also prove that these are truly contaminated. Cardboard, for one, that's one where we typically receive a credit off of our bill. We've had some that have come in saying that those are contaminated, therefore a charge. So it really has to do with, the classification of the load that's going to the facility and how that's named, as well as over this past fiscal year, a number of them have been questioned and disputed, and then new invoices were created. So that's where we think that through their financial system, they may have had some double invoicing, which Tyler had mentioned. He's worked with finance department, as well as I know Trista has been assisting on it, going through and gathering all of our accounts, that were, or bills that were received plus paid and processed. So
Yeah, it's a tedious process.
it's a tedious
Yeah.
process, but
Okay.
he just wanted to have enough in there in case, worst case scenario, 37,000 would be owed. That's the
Right.
claim. We feel it's below that, but as we're trying to close out the year, we wanted to make sure that there's enough in the account to cover it.
Okay, thanks.
And,
Charlie?
Tyler, how's the single collection going? Single? stream going?
There's two different sides to it. One would be at the transfer station, one would be at the residences. I think the residences are now getting more comfortable with it, so it's going well. In my office, we see a lot less calls than we have, so residences seem to have gotten it down, and now we're just able now, 2 months in, our first full month without the switch being so new, to look into the statistics and the material that was actually processed through single stream. So I would say it's going well, and the guys at the transfer station have had no trouble with the changeover for it to just be processed as one. So after this month is when we'll be able to look into it actually to see if there's been any fluctuation in the amount of material and things of that nature.
Thanks, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved.
Second.
Second by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Item number 9 is to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer for general government buildings for fiscal '23 from accrued payroll, $49, office supplies, $742, other supplies, $2,711, meal supplies, $550, equipment, $39.33, furniture and fixtures, $250, into fuel oil, $8,235. Geez, who's handling this? Ryan. That's perfect timing.
Yes, sir.
Well, he was happy that the pension guys weren't coming, so I figured he'd adjust his timing, but I didn't think he'd cut it that close.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Tonight, I'm requesting a transfer from, into my fuel oil account for $8,235. And it's from my accrual payroll, office supplies, other supplies, meal supplies, equipment, and furniture and fixture for a total of $8,235. Fuel oil ran over a little bit this year because the rising cost of fuel, and it kind of caught me by surprise.
Is this one particular building, or is it just across the board?
Townwide, 5 buildings,
So it's more in price, not in usage, not in
Right.
volume?
yeah.
Well, you probably had more usage at Canoe Brook with the
Yeah, because
animal
Canoe Brook-
shelter being there temporarily. as
Yes,
well.
that's true.
Questions? Somebody want to move it?
I'll move it.
Moved by Jeff. Second by Pam. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, item number 10, to consider if appropriate, approve the following transfer for police services for fiscal '23. From regular wages and salaries, $29,202. From purchase services, $17,287, for a total of $46,489. Transferring into overtime, $28,448. Accumulated sick, $754. Other fuel, $12,230, and communications, $5,057, for a total of $46,489. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. Just going down the list for you, the biggest transfer is for police overtime. And as it's noted on there, the amount of the overage was directly related to some of the legislative changes pertaining to risk protection laws that were passed, and we drove up high $30,000, almost to $40,000 in overtime within the last quarter because of these changes, because this necessitates investigation, then subpoenas for the officers, court appearances for hearing and serving these orders. Unfortunately, we have a very large caseload of these. These are directly related predominantly to mental health cases. So we did make some changes. For some of you may be aware, I did transfer an officer out of our patrol division into our records division to become our risk protection liaison to try to help stop some of this. And we were successful. However, there's been some changes at court, and we're in discussions with them to try to stem some ongoing subpoenas, because if the officer's on his day off, he's under subpoena, he has to go, we have to pay. There was days we had 3 and 4 officers in court for subpoenas at the same time. It was impacting their lives, it was impacting the operation, obviously it was impacting our bottom line, so we're trying to work our way through that. So more to come on that as the future, we have some future talks with the court. Accumulated sick is just basically contractually driven. When a tenured officer retires, the newer officers under the newer contracts are entitled to that. Fuel, thought we were going to make it. Our consumption stays pretty steady, but that was reflective of the market prices. And the roughly 5,000 overage in the communication line, we were close there, but we did have to buy some wireless technology components for our regional command post and some other odds and ends we wanted to add to that. That, along with some fiber upgrade to our radio sites, our repeater sites, drove that over.
Thanks, Chief. Questions? Charlie?
Hey, Chief, why are you getting so many subpoenas again? Why?
Why are we getting so many?
Yeah.
There's been a change. We had worked out a kind of a agreeable deal with one of the prosecutors, and there's been some changes in the interim. So we're working with leadership down there to see if we can continue what we've started, and I don't know what that outcome's going to be. A subpoena is a pretty powerful document.
Yeah.
But, you know, just to give you an idea, I believe we're up over, I believe we're north of 200 risk protection orders since the inception. So we're one of the busier departments. So,
Thank you.
but anytime there's a legislative change, a lot of time the fiscal impact is mentioned, but when it hits the ground and, you know, in practicality, what it looks like is a lot different. And there's certain things like this we can't control. We have to send the officers, they have to go.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions?
I'll move it.
Moved
I'll
by
second.
Harry, seconded by Jeff. Any questions, additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is item number 11, to consider if appropriate approve the following transfer for fire services for fiscal '23 from regular wages and salaries, $84,169, overtime, public events, $3,900, accrued payroll, $9,600, stipends, $9,900, medic shift part-time, $65,900, holiday pay, $11,600, special detail, $1,000, fire prevention, $1,100, equipment, $1,089, contingency, $84,576, purchase services, $76.50, employment testing, $462, uniforms, $105, CMed, $433, and transferring into overtime, $77,615, vacation, $1,354, replacement sick, $109,289, educational incentive, $27,924, professional development, $76.50, ambulance, $18,352, hydrants, $33,577, medical supplies, $47.23, other supplies, $462, miscellaneous volunteer expenses, $105, and memberships and conferences, $433, for a total of $281,484. It's quite the list, Chief and company. Welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry about the list. Let me start by addressing the stuff on the personnel side of the budget. You know, we started off the year with 3 vacancies, and as well as the assistant chief who joined us in December. Shortly after the new year, and into the first quarter of the new year, I had 3 people go out on long-term injury. Some of those came back, but others have gone out. I still have 3 people out on long-term injury. So the budget's really not built for that. As you know, we tried to address, and we're able to address most of it within our budget. Obviously had to hit contingency for an amount. The other shortages were in the water hydrants and mains, which we knew, you know, moving into the year, we didn't really know what the increase was going to be. So I talked with Jim, and we, you know, we knew we would be hitting contingency for that. All the other shortages are related to the ambulance operations, which this year were significantly increased, as you know, so we had to pay more to the billing company because we received more money, as well as additional ambulance supplies. We did collect an additional almost $518,000 in ambulance revenue above what we had originally budgeted for this year. So that's the fire department's request.
Okay.
Question?
Questions? Harry, go ahead.
Yeah, the medic shift part-time?
So the medic shift part-time, the overages are as a result of not being able to fill all the shifts, or we're filling them with full-time people, which then hits the overtime account. So that money's just transferring over to fill that overtime account.
And then they do what, the two classifications of the EMT and...
Yeah, so in the part-time side of the house, we hire both EMTs and paramedics.
Yeah.
But if there are nobody willing to work part or all of the shift, then it's available to the full-time people, and then they get paid out of the overtime account, which leaves a surplus. And then there are shifts we just simply can't fill because they are part-timers. We can't order them in, which sometimes leave us short-handed.
Charlie?
So we budget for the full year, but if we can't fill the shifts, then it leaves a surplus within the account.
Sure. Charlie?
Chief, stipends are just for volunteers?
No, stipends are paid to the paramedics,
Oh, they are.
and due to retirements and whatnot, that left a surplus in stipends as well.
I thought there's no stipends for volunteers?
Yes, they're paid under a
Under the
different
pension
account.
area.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jeff, go ahead.
Chief, is it fair to ask what type of injuries you guys are experiencing?
Most of them, some of them were a back issue. We had a back issue, a neck issue. Both those required surgical intervention, which is a long-term repair. Had another one that unfortunately had a tumor that had to be removed, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Most of these are injuries that are, we work very hard to prevent, but they're all kind of longer-term employees too, so it does take a toll on your body.
Thank you.
Chief, other questions on this transfer request?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Harry. Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Item number 12 is to consider and if appropriate approve a request from the Fire Chief Thomas Mahoney to appropriate $250,000 earmarked in the fiscal '24 contingency to staff the Indian Neck Fire Station with 2 firefighters Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to 6 at night. And the transfer will be from contingency $250,000 into overtime $250,000. Jim, could you just reiterate the contingency for fiscal '24?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Chief Janowitz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the fiscal '24 contingency balance with the 2 transfers from tonight's agenda is $1,799,951. I'm sorry, $1,799,951.
1,799,000.
951, yeah.
Okay.
He's missing a decimal point there for a minute. Okay, thank you, and Chief.
So when prior to COVID, the department experienced its busiest year. COVID kind of put a little bit of a pause on that for a couple reasons. We did less overall incidents and less people were being transported to the hospital. As soon as April of '22 happened, call volume went right up. It's continued to keep going up. We've been extremely busy. It simultaneously had caught me by surprise how busy we were, and also the demise of our volunteers. They just were not responding to the calls. We looked at our numbers, we had meetings, over the years we've tried to prevent this from happening, but we're at a point where, we needed to ask for additional personnel. Because it was in the middle of a budget year, or kind of coming into the new budget, we weren't really ready to articulate our needs to the board. So we spent the last several months doing a manpower plan. We collected our data, we put it all together in what I think is a very comprehensive plan that explains the threefold problem that we're up against, which is the increased call volume, the decrease in volunteers, and then the inequity of service. A lot of this is driven by the development and the type of development in town. But because we weren't prepared to ask, we needed to do something, and we had asked at that time to put money into contingency so that we could come later before the board and ask for that money to staff the Indian Neck Station Monday through Friday, basically the busiest hours of our day. And not only did we complete the manpower plan, and it's been distributed to most of the boards, majority leader, minority leader, the moderator, and starting to make its way out into the news. We hope to present the full plan to you at the September meeting. But tonight we're asking for the $250,000, which will be into the overtime account for our current staff to staff that station. There are days where we're not going to be able to staff it, simply due to the fact that, we still have some ongoing injuries, that, if we start to order people in to fill those and this, we'll start to burn our people out and potentially cause more injuries. So right now, we're just, we're doing it on a voluntary basis. We started at the end of July, so July 31st. It's already been extremely effective for us to have that there. It's very comforting to know that even if they're not doing calls, and that's the idea. You don't want them at your neighbor's house when you call 911, when engine one's been tied up for hours and hours at a time doing that next medical up on this side of town, that engine's staffed with people. So it gives us that comfort and the security that we need down there. So I appreciate it if you would move the request for $250,000 to continue that operation.
Thanks, Chief. Questions from the board? Charlie?
Hey, Tom, the bridge that's being repaired or replaced, by Lenny's?
Yes, sir.
Is that going to hamper the usage of that firehouse?
Well, during the closure, we actually staffed that under the previous budget year for the 2 weeks that it was completely closed. It has delayed a little bit when they've had it down to one lane. We've had to cut through the package store with their blessing, of course, but it's hopefully going to be done shortly after, they're going to get on it shortly after Labor Day is my understanding, and hopefully wrap it up within the next couple of months.
Okay, so the bridge will be done prior to staffing with full-timers?
We hope so, yeah.
Okay.
Pam?
Yeah, just a question. How long does it take, from posting the jobs to hiring? Do you get it pretty quickly, or could it be a delay?
Well, so if we were to hire full-time, which we won't be requesting until the fiscal 25 budget, we're probably looking at a 3-month process.
4 months.
At the earliest, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. It really depends on how much interest we have from our part-time.
Oh.
If we have people who are already up to speed and ready to go, and we have a good amount of interest from some of our part-time EMTs, that would be a good place for us to tap.
Have we got a what-if plan if that bridge isn't ready?
If the bridge isn't ready, they're going to have to, we're going to attempt to have the state pay to staff that station so that we can respond from both sides. That's.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we did it the last time. The state, it was more of a quid pro quo where they did some additional street work on Linden Avenue to pay for those firefighters stationed there.
Wow.
Yeah. So we always try to stay ahead of things like that. They're very good at communicating with us when they know that.
All right, so we're still paying for it with our taxes.
Either state or local.
Yeah.
Joe, I just
Okay.
want to give,
Bob,
just say
sure.
something. So the first time that we had the first staffing was on 7/31. We had a construction accident in Pine Orchard. Construction worker fell from a roof and hit another roof and was on the ground. I happened to be in the area, but Engine 9 was there in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We had another call on another street, 8-month-old baby wasn't breathing, Engine 9 was there in 3 minutes. We had a structure fire during the day, in the afternoon, these 2 fire chiefs responded. Engine 9 was the second due engine company that responded for a structure fire on Kirkland Street. They were there in 3 minutes. I keep saying 3 minutes because our plan of the town is to have someone there in 4 minutes eventually. That's what we're trying to do. We look at the whole plan. So the system is working, and that's what I want to say. So we've been doing a little trial test here. Just having the confidence knowing that we have to sleep a little bit better at night, but not during the day, that we have someone responding with this truck. It's a big deal. And I think the crews want to know that too, that someone's coming behind them.
Yeah.
So it's working.
All right.
So,
Thank you, Bob.
yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions on this?
Good.
And again, as the chief and the commissioners pointed out, that they're going to make a full presentation of their staffing plan at the September meeting. So we look forward to that.
I'll move it, Joe. This is a step in the right direction.
Thanks, Jeff.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Try to make it shorter next week.
Okay, number 13 is to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer for the Director of Human Resources from contingency, this is for fiscal '23, from contingency $53,155 into labor relations $53,155. Welcome, Margaret, how are you?
Very well, thanks for having me tonight.
Sure.
As you know, we have 4 unions in town. One of the unions has 6 contracts. We are currently in active negotiations with that union and those 6 contracts. Unfortunately, though, it's been quite slow for a number of reasons, and therefore we have had some additional labor costs associated with that union.
What are those 6 contracts, Margaret?
Sure. Dispatchers, police, Parks and Rec, Branford employees, Town Hall, wastewater treatment.
Okay. And what's the union?
UPSU,
Is it all the same unit?
yes, for those 6. We also, of course, separately have a Teamsters union, which we just settled our contract for Public Works. We have the International Association of Firefighters Union, which we have an active contract on, no negotiations needed. And then we have a supervisory union with another union, International, I forget the acronym right now.
ASME.
ASME, thank you.
ASME.
Thank you, Jamie, ASME.
So that keeps you busy.
Yes, it does.
Questions on this transfer?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by
I'll
Jeff,
second.
second by Pam. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, good luck.
Thank you, Joe.
Next is to, number 14 is to consider and if appropriate approve following transfer for the tax collector for fiscal '23 from contingency $13,141 into overtime $9,235, tax processing $3,006, and office furniture $900. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Again, the transfer of the $13,141 is requested from contingency for the following: overtime, tax processing, and office furniture. The overtime is $9,235. As we discussed, the tax office had a number of initiatives that we have been working on, changing depository institutions, moving lockbox from BOA to Webster, payment processing for the real estate, personal property, motor vehicles, and then the transition between the 2 institutions with lockbox. Again, working with QDS, which is our servicing platform and invoice cloud, and the Webster implementation team, the new Webster lockbox and testing. So, again, that took lots of time out of our day for processing payments. And then the training for the lockbox and the new platform. Again, we brought the sewer utility onto the new lockbox, so we had the same process as we used for the tax implementation. So again, time was used there. Again, working with QDS and Webster Bank to get that together. Then we had problems with QDS in uploading our sewer utilities and the setup of the financial interface GLs. And then transfer updates from the titles on the sewer updates. We had probably about 500 accounts that we had to go back in and retitle. So lots of work done on that side. Continuing with audit research as requested by the auditors. And we finally have our credit card operation up and running in the front office where you can come in and make your payments on credit cards. So that was pretty much the bulk of the overtime. Tax processing of the $3,000 was for additional bills. and collection correspondence of monthly statements on the collection enforcement. And the $900 was for the purchase of a fireproof file cabinet that we use for payments that come in that we may not be able to get processed that day that won't fit our current vault setup. So we have an auxiliary vault for that. And that is the request for $13,141.
Thanks, Bob. Questions? Charlie?
Bob, where are we on the collection percentage as of today?
The last I looked, Charlie, we were at 99.20, but I think it might be a little bit higher than that. I'm just waiting for the rest of the numbers to come in.
Good.
So,
Thanks.
so we have obviously a new fiscal year, so we're watching that. We're trying to, move folks who are delinquent now to collect those folks so they don't get any further than they are today.
Okay. Questions?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by Jeff.
Second.
Second by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. Item number 15 is to consider and if appropriate, approve the following fiscal 23 transfer for public works from street lights, $32,416. Repairs and maintenance, $326 for a total of $32,742. Transferring into utilities, $4,848. Other fuel, $27,568. And uniform clothing, $326. Again, for $32,000, total of $32,742. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, as you heard from PD and GGB, we weren't spared from the rising utility costs or fuel costs either. So that's the reason for this transfer out of street lights into utilities and other fuels.
Mm-hmm.
And our uniform and clothing, we had two DPW employees basically transfer to the transfer station. When they did that during mid-year, we had to replace those employees to DPW, and we ended up, getting them uniforms, so that was not planned.
Okay. So on the other fuel, that's diesel?
Yes.
Is that based on volume or all price?
Price, mostly price.
So the volume is basically the same as?
Excuse me?
The volume of fuel is similar?
I could get you that information.
That's right. Most of it is price, the cost.
The cost
of
was,
fuel. Okay.
Yep.
Questions? Charlie?
On the streetlights, Gary, look, I know we don't own the poles, but we own the arms and the lights, is that right?
I think you asked that question before. No, let me see if I can figure this out.
We didn't buy it.
We didn't buy it.
We don't own them.
We don't own them.
No, we don't own them.
No, we had thought about it years ago.
It's a flat rate, it's a fee per light. They're not metered, obviously, but what type of fixture we have on there determines the rate that the Eversource charges us. The only lights that we do own are the decorative lighting that you see primarily around the green. But all the other street lights.
The arms and the...
No. We were looking at that a few years ago, Charlie, and actually, that's probably you recall us. I think we actually.
Yeah, wasn't that 18-year program?
We were going to do well, no, it wasn't part of that, but it was separate around that time. You're right. We did look at it, but Eversource had started at that point to go through their conversion, and it wasn't really cost effective for us at that time to acquire the lights based on the rates.
So if we need a new street light on a town road, we have to go to...
So we call Eversource, we put in a request, and then they just add that to our bill. For the,
Likewise, if you have a streetlight that's out,
usually the town
you want the pole number,
Right.
and then call,
Call our office.
Call town
Yeah.
selectman's office, and they'll, because you're paying for it whether or not it's on or not.
Right, so if that's, thank you, Joe. The Public's, if you do have a
Little plug
street light that is out in your, town, if you provide us not only the location, but there's a pole number on there.
Yeah.
If you have that number, then we can call it in and have them fix that light.
Okay, questions from Gary or Jamie on this?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved. Seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Next is item number 16, to consider if appropriate approve following transfer for the town clerk fiscal 23 from wages and salaries $3,275, transfer into professional development $1,809, other purchase services $459, purchase services repairs and maintenance $258, memberships conference and meetings $749 for a total of $3,273. Lisa, you provided us with a good explanation in your memo. Would you like to comment?
Sure, thank you. So this is to close out FY23. We had a vacancy gap in staffing, so we had an overage in regular wages and salaries, and of that overage, I am covering a deficit in professional development, memberships and conferences and meetings. It seemed like I was in classes every other week. I finally achieved all 4 of my certifications. So just this past quarter, I've received my Master Connecticut Town Clerk certification as well as my International Master certification. So those take time, courses. I did go over my budget, and I'm hoping that you cover it. Other purchase services was not a line item that's typically funded, but the $459 was to cover 3 of our part-time election workers during absentee ballot time where reconciliation process needs to happen. We were a little bit behind the 8 ball, and the registrars sent us a few folks to help us out. So that was what that was about. And then purchase services, repair and maintenance was also a 0 but line item budget, and our vital records electronic seal needed to be sent out for repair to sharpen the die. And then shredding was not typically covered in individual budgets, but now it is going to be covered in our own budget. So we budgeted for FY24 accordingly, but for FY23 it was a shortage of $83.
Okay, well, congratulations on your professional development achievements.
Thank you.
Questions from the board on this?
No, just congratulations.
Thank you.
How many years did it take?
10. Well, all told, 10.
Wow.
But for the master ones, 3 years. You have to achieve the first grade level before you can start accruing points toward the master. So both master ones were 3 years.
Are you glad it's over?
I am.
Okay.
Congratulations, Lisa. I'll move it, Joe.
Thank you.
Moved by Jeff,
A second.
second by Pam. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 17 is to consider and if appropriate approve the following transfer relating to the parks and open space improvements for fiscal 23 from contingency 66,000 transfer out to the fund 700 at 66,000 and the corresponding in the special funds transfer in of 66,000 and allocation to the line item parks and open space $66,000. Jim, you handling this?
Yes. The board may recall in last year's budget, we had a request from the Parks and Open Space Commission for some capital projects in the open space area, Supply Ponds, Pisgah Brook, Farm River Meadows Preserve. And the biggest of those projects was that pole bridge below the dam at the Supply Ponds, and also some boardwalk construction at Pisgah Brook. We did not fund that at the time. In our capital plan, we designated that as other, which meant that we were going to fund it with dollars outside of the fiscal 24 tax levy. And so that's what we're doing tonight. We're creating a capital project in fiscal year 23. As you know, capital projects typically stay open until they're completed, or if they fall under the capital balance ordinances that was recently adopted by the RTM. So this is really just kind of completing this element of the capital plan. A brief segue is probably at a future meeting. We'll talk about some of the other things in the capital plan which would require bonding, but this was one of the things that would be funded, like I said, through non-tax dollars. And so we looked to see where we were at the end of the year. We had funds in contingency, and so that's where we funded the $66,000.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Questions? Do we want to move it?
I'll move it.
Moved by Jeff.
I'll second.
Seconded by Charlie. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 18 is to consider and if appropriate approve the following transfers from the finance director for various departments. I'll run through them. Board of Finance from contingency $32,000 into transfer into audit $32,000. For fiscal services, overtime, from overtime $100 into longevity $100. For legal services, from tax appeals $16,420 into expenses and claims $16,420. For public celebration, transfer from other supplies $78, moving it into seasonal and part-time help is $78. For public celebration, transfer from other supplies of $80, transferring it into seasonal and part-time help. For probate court, transfer from communications for $55 into microfilming at $55. For zoning board of appeals, transfer out of travel for $350, memberships of $200, and regular wages of $515 for total transfer outs of $1,065, moving it into advertising and printing for $1,065. And lastly, for cable TV, from contingency 204 and transfer into seasonal part-time help 204. And Jim, you want to provide us highlights on these?
Yeah. The two largest items are the audit and the tax appeal to expenses and claims. And the audit, as you know, with some of the timing of the audits, we turned money back in the 22 year, and we're incurring some of those expenses in the 23 fiscal year. So, and we also had the increase in audit fees. We used to be in the high 60s, and we're up to just below $75,000. The tax appeals, the account would have been almost perfect, except for there was some costs that were associated with a collection effort that was fairly involved, and it involved Bob's here. It involved a global settlement, but there were legal fees associated with that. And on the expense side, they get charged to the expenses and claims. On a positive note, however, part of the settlement was that our costs would be reimbursed, so that came in on the revenue side. So all in all, while in isolation it appears like it's a $16,000 problem, on balance, significant dollars were collected, and the legal fees were covered by the town. The one thing just to note, out of all of these are mostly closeout transfers. There is one fiscal 24, with the seasonal and part-time help and public celebration. So we're sort of addressing 2 years there, and the other ones are relatively small transfers from departments that you don't usually see throughout the year.
Thanks, Jim. Questions on this?
I'll move it.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And before we go to item number 19, Jamie, did you want to mention the staffing issue?
Sure, thank you, Joe. I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent retirement of our town tax assessor, Barbara Neal. Barbara has served the town of Branford for nearly 37 years. She is somebody, I think, those who know her, have somebody that's been dedicated to the town of Branford. We know how important maintaining an accurate grand list is, maintaining the integrity, having it filed on time. Tonight, as this board deals with every month, a number of transfers and adopting a budget, and it all starts with really the value of our grand list. So I just want to thank Barbara for her many years of service to the town of Branford. Publicly.
Thanks, Jamie. I remember working with Barbara back in the 1970s, late 70s, so I know she's been working for a long, long time, and then became assessor, and really knew and provided a great public service. So again, thanks to her, and I know the board members have also experienced her expertise, and we appreciate it.
Yep.
So, okay, with that, we wish her the best of luck, and thanks, Jamie, for that update. Item number 19 is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll move it.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded by Pam. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.